What's up everyone, it's Josh here from the Architecture Student Blog and welcome back to another day in the life of an architect video. Haven't been sued by the RIBA so far, have only got 400 views on the videos though, so probably not too much of a threat at the moment, but anyway. So in today's video, I've got another few meetings as always. These are over in Birmingham, so a little bit further afield, so I've tried to just tie some of those in together. One is a snagging meeting. We've reached the end of the defect period on one of the projects, so I'm just going out to snag any issues that might have cropped up over the last 12 months. And the other one is one of our specialist adaptation projects that's on site, so I'll look forward to showing you that one. But yeah, that's it, let's get into the video. So it's time to head off to my first meeting of the day. It's over in Birmingham, so a bit of a drive to get over there. I'll probably listen to a podcast whilst I'm on the way there. I like to listen to podcasts whilst I'm in the car if I'm on a longer journey, just to try and take in a bit more extra information. So for those of you that are interested, I thought I'd share just some of the podcasts that I listen to. One of my favourites is Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. He's the founder of Social Chain. I think he was a millionaire by the time he was 25, so pretty much knows his stuff. He has some really interesting guests on there, just really getting into the mindset and the strategies, both business and obviously health and well-being. He's had guests like Jake Humphrey, Joe Wicks. He's had quite a few young social influencers on there, which I found really interesting. There's also the Joe Rogan Experience, as well as outside of architecture. I also love mixed martial arts, so from a fighting point of view, he has some great fighters on there from the UFC, but more importantly, he has some really big name guests that talk about some of the most important issues. My favourites are always his with Elon Musk. Then from a property side of things, of course, as an architect, I'm also interested in property. So Inside Property Investing and the Property Podcast are two really interesting and thought-provoking podcasts on the property market. And then one of the major influences in me starting the blog is Gary Vaynerchuk and the Gary V audio experience. His YouTube videos and his podcasts give out so much free value on how to grow a social media following, generally just media and branding, which are really interesting, using some of the tactics and techniques that he talks about for the practice that I'm working at the moment. So yeah, definitely recommend you go and check those out, but back to the video. So just a quick tour of the outside of the property. We introduced this ramp from the garage and the new automated doors. This render was done by others before we're involved, don't worry, so that's nothing to do with us. The contractor will be rectifying that as part of his scope of works though, just so that the property's livable. So I thought it might be interesting just to go through exactly what happens at the end of the project. I know perhaps some architecture students might not get the opportunity to take projects all the way through to completion. So I just thought I'd give you a little visual diagram of the various key stages that happen towards the end of a project. So number one, we have the contractor completes the work on site. They'll notify us. We then need to go out to the property to inspect the works, and that's the snagging meeting that occurs prior to the works being handed over. You then have the snagging works that are rectified by the contractor before it's handed over to the client. Then we would issue a practical completion certificate, which releases some of the retention. It then commences the 6 or 12 month defects period, and then following that we would go back out for another snagging meeting just to see if any issues have arisen during the defects period, and then finally the works are signed off and the certificate of making good is issued. Now that is a very quick whistle-stop tour of what happens at the end of a project. Today's meeting was number 6. Defects period had been completed. We then went back out just to check any further snagging items. Generally that's going to be things just like plaster cracks. So once we've got all of that rectified and the contractor's gone out there and got that sorted, I'll then issue the certificate of making good and the project is absolutely complete. But yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to show you. I mean, obviously this is just based on the residential schemes that we do. On the much larger schemes, I wouldn't even dare to try and think of the various different stages that happen. But yeah, even on a smaller residential project, there's still quite a few meetings that need to take place just to ensure that the quality control methods are in there. But yeah, that's a very quick description and explanation of what happens at the end of a project.
So the meeting went really well, not too many snagging items to pick up. There's still some render on the outside that was an issue before we were involved in the project. That just needs to be rectified. That's going to be all picked up by the contractor. I haven't shown too much inside, obviously just from a privacy point of view, but I hope that just gave you a little bit of an insight into what our specialist adaptation projects are like and what they involve. Now, on to my next meeting.
So here we are at the new property. As you can see, new fascias and soffits and gutters because they were wooden and had rotten and fallen into disrepair. Here we are in the client's bedroom area. As you can see, the wet room ensuite that we've been working on. The client's chosen some fantastic finishes in here. It looks really great. As you can see, the level access shower trays in, ready to go. And this is just the new home office that's been formed. As you can see by the markings on the floor, we've made that slightly bigger than what it was before, and it should be ready to go for the client.
Another good meeting, a fairly quick one there, to be fair, really. The guys are getting on really well. There's nobody on site today just because they're waiting for some decorating works to be completed. As you can see, that's another one of our specialist adaptation projects. That was to form a wet room and a sort of office come dressing area for the client. There is also another bathroom in the property that is going to be completed after the ensuite's been completed, which will also form a sort of specialist wheelchair accessible wet room. So yeah, time to head home, go and grab some lunch, go and take Finn for a walk, and then back into the office.
Really flagging today, so I had to pull out the old Twix White to give me a bit of a sugar rush. Anybody that knows these knows they are the ultimate chocolate. Don't test me.
So you've probably heard me mention the specialist adaptation project so far this video. I just wanted to explain what that actually is. We're quite fortunate, we're one of a few practices within the local area that specialise in specialist adaptation projects. Now, you might think initially that that's just kind of council run projects doing wet rooms and en-suites for people living with a disability. We can do that, and we have done that in the past, but we actually work a lot for private clients. I won't go too far into the detail of it, obviously, but we actually do a lot of private work for private clients, and that's resulted in things such as we've done new build properties, replacement dwellings, hydrotherapy pool extensions. There's quite a bit of work that goes on with these specialist adaptation projects. In its most simple terms, the reason why we use the phrase specialist adaptation, it's almost a bit of a buzzword that's used within people in the industry. It's just the project that's specifically adapted to suit somebody that's living with a disability. There's no particular definition on what the disability might be. Some clients might be a wheelchair user, some clients might have visual impairments, that it varies across the board, and it does mean that each project that we complete is completely different. It's something that I never expected I would get into in architecture, but I have to say it's been incredibly rewarding. Like I say, there's so many opportunities that have come through, from new build properties to things like hydrotherapy pools that I never imagined that I would be designing. We've not long completed a hydrotherapy pool that you should be able to see here. Which was an incredible experience, something that I never dreamed of being able to do when I was an architecture student. So yeah, if you hear me talking about specialist adaptation projects, which you probably will in the vlogs, those are the kind of projects that I'm talking about. Time to eat my lunch.
Time to get back to the office. I've had a few emails during my lunch break, so it's probably going to be most of my afternoon spent just wrapping up some admin. So I'll see you when I finish. So I didn't actually get a chance to film anything in the office this afternoon, as is always the case when I've had meetings in the morning. Lots of admin, lots of phone calls to return, something on one of our bigger developments that just needed sorting out. So wasn't really much fun to film anything because it was mainly just me getting on and off the phone. I think I probably had about 5 minutes at the end of the day to start looking at something. I think I had about 5 minutes at the end of my day to actually look at what I wanted to. I think that's just in the nature of working in a small practice. You're obviously given a lot more responsibility, perhaps sooner than you would in a larger practice. So even though I'm qualifying to become an architect and I'm technically a Part 2 architectural assistant, I'm still working on the bigger jobs. I'm still out running projects on site. And I think it's one of the key things that you probably aren't taught so much at university, or isn't really explained to, is actually time management when it comes to being in a practice is one of the most essential skills that you can have. To be able to manage your time and keep on top of all of your clients' wants and needs whilst also getting the work out of the door as well is so pivotal in running a successful practice. It's something that I've learned with time. So something a little bit different for the end of today's video. I've actually just got my first result back for my Part 3 assignment. I mean, I'm over the moon with it. I've got a decent result. I got a first, so I'm happy with that. Ironically, I actually dropped the most marks on the marketing section just as we've hit 90,000 followers on the blog, and I also dropped marks on my CV, so I'm going to have to redo my CV because apparently it didn't read very well. It was too designy, I think. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to record the whole thing as I completely overhauled my CV that I'd need to be doing for my Part 3 and turn that into a YouTube video. I know I've already done a video before showing you how to make a CV. You can see that up there. So that's the end of the video. Make sure that you like and subscribe to make sure you never miss a video, and I'll see you next week.